Matt, what is that?
It's a refreshing green drink.
Where did you get it?
From these funny-looking guys who live in my town.
Matt, don't drink that.
Why not? It looks delicious.
Kelsey, Kelsey, what are you doing here?
You can't let him drink that, Dyl. You have to stop him.
How? I can't physically stop him. We live in different states.
You have 10 seconds. Only 10 seconds to start the episode, or else he's gonna drink that and turn into one of those things. You have 10 seconds.
Framewreck?
What a story, Mark.
That was good.
Oh, well, that didn't work. All right, let's get to the show and let's get started before something terrible happens. Hey, everyone, welcome to Framewreck, another episode of Framewreck. Nothing crazy happened before the show. Don't worry about it. Disregard it. Yeah, there we go. A regular cup. Thanks, Matt. We are back talking about a staple, a classic that Matt and I both love. This is rare on the show where we both come to an episode where we both know and love the movie that we're talking about equally, and because usually it's me discovering a movie for the first time that Matt loves, or even vice versa, where we're both kind of discovering a movie for the first time. But this one we both love. It is Troll 2. Matt, I don't even know where to begin. First off, how are you, and are you excited to be talking about Troll 2 today?
I'm very excited to be talking about Troll 2. I've said it before. This is not going to be a shock or anything like that. This is my favorite bad movie. This is a number one worst best movie of all time. I love this movie, and we're going to talk about why.
I love it. So let's get right into it. Where do we start, Matt? Where's the best place to start with this one? Because there's a lot to talk about, a lot to bring up, a lot of instances in the movie to talk about. It's a longer movie, so we can't necessarily go scene by scene, but I'd like to try to hit as many great, amazing parts as we can.
So we'll talk about a lot of it. Let's start with, if you haven't seen Troll 2, go watch it right now. It's yes. You can find it streaming places. It's on Hoopla. It's you can rent it. There's places
Pluto,
to watch
Tubi,
it.
Places like that. Yeah,
go watch it.
You might have ads. But you kind of need the ads to kind of decompress a bit, because this is a lot. At least
it is a lot. But if you aren't going to watch it and you haven't seen it, Troll 2 is basically a family does a house swap with another family, going to a small town called Nilbog, and to live in their house. And turns out that this small town is run by goblins, vegetarian goblins, who want to turn people into plant type food so that they can eat them. And this is about that family and how they go. Really, the plot is unnecessary. You don't need to really know the plot.
It's how they navigate these vegetarian monsters, who, funny enough, I think this is a good place to start, are not trolls. They are not trolls whatsoever. They are goblins. And I actually think it's funny because Troll 2, people are probably asking, well, what about Troll 1? Why aren't you guys going to cover Troll 1? And the reason is, though this be a sequel to Troll 1, this has nothing to do with Troll 1, nor does it have anything to do with trolls, nor was it even supposed to be called Troll 2. It was originally titled Goblins, as would be a probably more apropos title. If you're looking at this like, oh, it's a horror movie, I'm too scared, don't worry, it's not scary in that way. It is not your traditional horror movie. It is camp, and it is technically, I guess, under the horror banner, but you do not have anything to be scared of. All you have to be scared of is people walking in and wondering what the hell you're watching and having to explain it to them. That's what you should be scared of. And even then, you might have a blast trying to explain this movie to someone.
Don't explain it to anybody. Make them watch it. Oh, you don't know what this is? We're watching this now.
I was gonna say, this is the perfect movie where, like, if you have a group of friends and you're trying to settle on a movie, be like, have you ever seen Troll 2? And they'll be like, no. And you're like, all right, we're watching it ASAP. Because even if you don't know every friend's particular genre of interest, like, it's gonna be a riot watching this together. Even more so than The Room or Birdemic. Like, Birdemic, I could see how it annoys people. The Room, The Room is its own different beast, but like this, I feel like is just entertaining. but in all the worst ways, and I love it.
Right, and I really wanted to. I have a lot to say about this. Let me just start real quick with production notes about the things. That's how we always start here. First of all, it was directed by Claudio Fragasso under the pseudonym Drake Floyd. And it was written by Claudio and his wife, Rossella Drudy. She is originally titled Goblins, as he stated, as Dylan stated. According to Rossella Drudy, she came up with the film as a way to express her frustration with several of her friends becoming vegetarians.
I didn't know that. That is incredible. Which we just want to put out there, like, we very much support any dietary choices people watching this show make. We are not telling you here that you have to be a vegetarian or not have to be a vegetarian. You can be whatever you want to be, vegan, vegetarian. We do not care here at Framewreck.
I do draw the line at turning people into plants to eat them if you're that kind of vegetarian.
So if you're otherwise that type of vegetarian, we do not support it. And we also do not support cannibalism, of course. But every other type of dietary needs you may have, we do support here. We do not condone slander on vegetarians like Miss Claudia. We do not, but we do appreciate that it led to this amazing film.
Yes. Most of the crew did not speak English, and that caused a lot of confusion for the cast because they're Italian. And even the writers didn't speak fluent English, so the script was written in their broken English. And they told, and since they were the writers and the directors, he was the director and they were the writers, they told him, even though the cast offered to fix the dialogue while they were saying it, they said, no, say it as written. And that kind of explains the dialogue of this movie.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like when you go on vacation and like you're in a foreign country and you use like a Google Translate app to like translate the what you want to say, and then you say it to someone and someone laughs because it's totally grammatically incorrect, despite it being a somewhat broken translation. It kind of feels like that. And I'm not saying, it's impossible to have a cohesion between a language barrier on set, but again, at $100,000 budget, you're not going to have the resources to fund a translator for every single day of production and have those middlemen in between to kind of translate, because this cast is very American, very like plain old vanilla ice cream American.
Most of them were from
very much not.
Most of them were from Salt Lake City. Like it was filmed in that area and they cast in that area. So most of them were just were that type, like we're definitely down home American people. And it's funny because so there's a documentary which if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's called Best Worst Movie. It was made by the kid who plays the kid in the movie. He directed the movie. Cool. He directed this documentary, and it kind of goes over what the movie is, its fandom and stuff. Well, the director and most of the cast is in it, and the director a lot of them like to talk about how they would constantly tell him, hey, this isn't really how American kids act. And he's like, I know how. Claudio would be like, I know how Americans act. I know everything about Americans. And it's like, oh, okay. All right. So that kind of explains a lot of it. I mean, language barriers, they happen. There's not, that itself is not necessarily a problem. It's when you are so stubborn and refuse to accept any help on the matter.
Well, because we've seen like directors like Bong Joon-ho direct Chris Evans, and it's no problem. Like we've seen that happen before. So that's not an excuse, but I just think it's funny. And another tidbit, I don't know if you have this in your notes, but I read that a lot of the cast, actually most of the cast, were auditioning to be extras in this film. So that just goes to show the level of experience of the caliber of actors. And I'm not saying extra actors are bad, but if you have people auditioning for a certain role, there's a certain expectation of talent and level and stuff like that. So I think it's just funny that these people that would normally be just background work are getting their big breaks. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because I don't think any of these people worked much ever since. But it is very interesting to see just like people who literally didn't want these roles kind of went in to be like, I just want to make a few bucks being in the background of this, maybe being one of the trolls, just in the ensemble of trolls in the background, or sorry, goblins, because trolls aren't in this movie, oddly enough. But I just thought that was hilarious, because I know the step from extra work to like featured or leading work.
Right.
It's also a huge up in pay, which good for them for getting those paychecks. But I just thought that was funny.
Right. Yeah, I don't have that in my notes, but that's something they talk about in the documentary. Is like they're just like, I had no idea. Like, so I went in to be an extra, and they called me and they're like, "You got the lead in this movie." It's like, wait, what?
Yeah,
and
it's crazy.
The person I felt worse for, actually, the person who plays the mom I feel worse for, but not for reasons having to do with Trolls. Or Troll 2. The person I feel worse for having to do with Troll 2 is the daughter, because she's still like an actress. Like, she still goes in for
Connie
auditions.
McFarland,
yeah, she still goes in for auditions, and she doesn't have Troll 2 on her CV. However, she said that sometimes people will look her up, see that she's in Troll 2, watch her in a clip, and just be like, "No, we saw Troll 2." Like,
that's so unfortunate.
Yeah,
too,
it's so unfortunate.
Because when we talk about these movies, also at the end, we like to go through our like best actor who elevated the material and our worst actor, and it's sometimes tough because it's like a lot of these movies we're only basing it off of their performances in these movies. We haven't seen them in anything else. Like an exception being like Face Off or Batman and Robin, where we've obviously seen Arnold's other works, we know what he is capable of otherwise, or like Nicolas Cage. But here it's tough because like this is the one and only impression we have of these people, and if I were to sit down and see her name in a pile and look her up, like, is she gonna book a role based on this film? Spoiler alert for my worst actors, probably not. So yeah, I feel bad though. I do feel bad because it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. Yes. We'll definitely get to that to the actor part. But well, actually, that's where it brings us now. Is what makes this film great.
Yeah, and I think it is just a culmination of the acting with the dialogue that is not translated properly. And of course, just the bizarre nature of its premise. I think just the sheer ideas of this, turning humans into plants so they can eat them. It's honestly kind of a creative B movie idea, but it's just the way they execute it is just so crazy. With all the effects and stuff.
I agree. I actually thought that while I was watching. Well, I've seen it many times, but this time while I was watching it, I was like, the concept of turning them into something, and the idea of a fairy tale creature getting the people to eat something for their own wills, is not new. That's actually a classic fairy tale thing. So having them try to get them to eat this so that they can change their structure into that's actually a pretty clever idea. It's just the wrong person had it, I think, is the thing.
Yeah, like I'd love to see Guillermo del Toro's Troll 2. I think it would actually be like pretty freaking amazing.
Dude, I would. That would be awesome.
Or like Bong Joon-ho's Troll 2. Like give me let me pitch it to Hollywood. Like, let's revive Troll 2, call it something else, and let them have at it because I think it'd be fun.
I could see both of them making a great Troll 2 remake because with Del Toro, you'd have just some great body horror and some great, just a great dark fairy tale feel. But with Bong Joon-ho, it could definitely be a class statement where these rich city people come into the town and they can do whatever they want, and this is the way that these these goblins defend themselves. It would be a great class study. I think
we just made a beautiful pitch, and I think we are going to be millionaires after this. And you know what? I want Connie McFarland to be in the film. I do want to give her another shot. I want to.
Here's the thing about that. Let's talk about the acting and writing. I have them as separate points, but you can't really separate them because the problem with a lot of the acting is that they did not have reasonable dialogue to say, and that the Connie McFarland, that is her main issue. I think that she's probably fine. Maybe she's great. Maybe she's not. I can't judge that on this, obviously. But she does act like, whether she said, even though she does not say dialogue like a teenage girl says, she does act like a teenage girl in this movie, which and not a realistic teenage girl, because obviously she was being directed by an old man who didn't understand American children, despite how he said. But there was a lot of it that went, okay, I see the 1980s teenage girl thing that they are going for right here, and so I would love to see her again in something where that was competently written and competently directed.
Right.
But some of her dialogue that she has to deliver, she has some of the worst dialogue. Not my worst dialogue part, but she has some of the worst dialogue.
Well, I was gonna say, some of my worst dialogue is hers. Like, I just think, also it's all so early on in that movie. Like just back to back scenes. It's like you have the whole like scene with the boyfriend where she's like saying all these weird homoerotic like crazy shit, and then like the next scene in the car ride, like on the way to the farm, like both those scenes, she just has some wild dialogue.
You trying to turn me into a homo?
Wouldn't it be too hard? If my father discovers you here, he'd cut off your little nuts and eat them.
The interaction is like it's like Aliens were trying to mimic what a human conversation is like, what a teenage human conversation is like, because it feels reminiscent of something that someone might think a teenager would say, but it's definitely not something teenagers would say.
You and me in the woods, this time we'll be able to be together for sure.
Here's the thing about this movie, because you touched on it earlier, which is how it is. Some bad movies are bad through like here and there, and that's what makes them great. Some bad movies have a really bad part in them, but the rest of it's whatever. This movie, soup to nuts, start to finish, is so entertainingly bad. Like there is not a second of this movie that isn't entertaining. And that's why it's so that's why I love it so much. So to say what are some instances of dialogue, all of it. I don't think there is a moment of dialogue in this movie that isn't bad.
Right. Yeah, and that's same with like when we talk about our Framewreck moment, like I have 3, because it's like there are 3 instances, and that's just in the sum of so many others too. Because it's like there's not one scene, like you said, that like stands out. There's one scene to me that is like the one that people talk about as like a selling point. And I'm not sure if we'll talk about it later or not, but it's probably the one you can guess. But it's just also good. And because when you first were opening this movie or starting this movie, I'm talking like it's a book, but it's the grandfather reading the book to the kid, and it's almost like kind of like the copycat Princess Bride thing, but it's kind of like a B horror movie. Like it starts off with a little bit of promise, but as it goes on, it just kind of snowballs into further catastrophe of everything, of the dialogue, of the premise, of the craziness of the grandfather's ghost and these goblin creatures and just this whole farm and the whole society of people. Like it just spirals. It gets bigger and bigger to where you don't think it's going to go any further, and it does. And that's what's crazy about
it. I'm glad you mentioned that, because my next point about what makes this movie great is going to be Grandpa Seth. Okay, so you say it starts with promise. I do disagree with that, only because of how abruptly this movie begins. There is no score. There is nothing except it starts.
No studio,
anything
like that.
There's no score before the first line of dialogue, before the first, because it starts in them running through the forest or whatever, because he's telling the story, and it starts with his line of dialogue telling the story. There is no score. It goes from MGM Lion to the start of the story. It's so abrupt. Now,
I didn't even get an MGM Lion on my streaming. Like I literally pressed play and it was them in the woods. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like no studios at all. Like maybe on the DVD there's like a little studio something because they distributed it or something, but here it was right into it. Like literally right into it. It was Avengers Endgame, Hawkeye and his daughter, like pre-Marvel Studios, like everything was just, we were in the action. But this one's even more chaotic, which is
it's more abrupt. See, that was great, because the score sweeps in, and then you kind of look to where they are in that scene in Endgame. That doesn't happen here. It's so abrupt. It's insane. Okay, so it starts off with Grandpa Seth telling the story, a la Princess Bride. It's definitely a ripoff of Princess Bride. That's what they're doing. But unlike the Princess Bride, he's telling this weird, gruesome, cautionary tale, I guess. About goblins and basically setting up the whole movie. Grandpa Seth.
They can. Goblins still exist. Your Grandpa Seth is telling you.
The rules on Grandpa Seth change with every scene he's in. He starts out in the room telling the story, doing all this, and it almost feels like maybe it's in the boy's imagination. And then, but then later, he scares the sister.
Joshua.
By showing up in her room in her mirror and being like, "I'm sorry, I need to learn the layout of this house."
Which is also funny because if he was their grandpa, whether he's alive or not, he's probably been to their house and knows the layout of it.
Right. He was just telling a story in that room.
Right.
Like he's been there. Like, it's so weird.
It's not like he's a random person's grandfather. He was their grandfather. It's just he's dead now and he's a ghost. Or
right. And then later this is my favorite. Maybe not my favorite, but this is my favorite weird rule that they have or weird thing that happens with Grandpa Seth is when the boy sees him on the side of the road and makes him stop, and which, to be fair, they were like, "Are you going to be sick?" He was like, "Yes," and I was like, that's a smart kid. Smart. Like he didn't even have to think about it. He's like, "Yes, that's the lie that will get them to stop. I do have to throw." So which was great. But he goes up to Grandpa Seth, who's on the side of the road, and he looks at him and he says, "What are you doing here?" As though Grandpa Seth is just there, like he had possessed that hitchhiker just for fun and didn't expect to see his family on that road. Which is crazy. Then he shows up. I these are not all of them, but then he shows up and is able to freeze time, apparently. And then later shows up and says, but when the clock begins to strike 6, I will be gone forever. It's like, what the hell? What is this roller coaster of Grandpa Seth appearances?
It's almost like Grandpa Seth it makes up his own rules and makes up his own decision on who can see him and who can't, maybe, but they don't explain that. I don't think they care to. I don't think they thought about it like we are. And with the freezing of time too, it's also funny because normally with a bigger budget, maybe they would actually freeze the frame and then have an actor walk through it and then put it over in post or whatever. But here, all they do is the actors freeze. But when actors freeze, and I know this just because on stage, this is how you do it. You actually freeze, but very subtly, you can see them shaking. So like when they're walking around the dinner table, like you can see the mom, her hands are shaking ever so slightly. And it's not too distracting, but it's just funny that like, it's supposed to be this magical power to freeze everyone, but it's very obvious the actors are just trying to freeze in place and not doing it as successfully as if you had just frozen the film. Frozen the film.
Right. My favorite thing about that freezing scene is how it's like you have 30 seconds to stop them, and then
it goes on for 2 minutes.
And then for 2 minutes it goes, and he slowly walks around them looking at them, slowly walking around, looking at each of them. It's like, where is this kid's sense of urgency? Grandpa Seth, come back and light a fire under his ass. Like, this is this is insane. And then
I don't know if maybe the filmmakers in their home country, maybe time moves slower. I don't know. Maybe because I know they eat dinner later than us. I don't know.
That's probably why.
So 30 seconds to them is like a good 6 minutes, so you got
he walks like there was absolutely no urgency, and there also number one, he could have just taken the food away in that 30 seconds, but number two,
Matt, no, he could not have, because then we would not have this movie and we would not talk about this movie, because that is when I was talking about the moment that, like, if you're going to sell your friend on any moment, this is going to be the one you talk about. It's the fact that he pisses on all the food. Like that is, I think, the most iconic thing in this movie to me. I'm like, I love it, and I don't know if you do too, but I think it's.
I do.
I honestly wish they had shown it a little bit more. Not him peeing, but like the aftermath of just the pee on all the food. Like I wish they had gone even crazier with it, but it's quite crazy.
And somehow he peed on. But here's the thing: like the 30 seconds was up, so he peed on everything while they watched everything without anybody stopping him or intervening. Apparently, like like they had to get rid of everything on the, which like I guess you do. I guess now that I think about that, I guess if someone peed on my table, I probably wouldn't want to eat anything that was on that table.
But also, if he started peeing while they were frozen, like, and their hands, because their food was close to their mouth, so like if he pees on Sister's corn cob, that sounded crazy. If he pees on the Sister's corn cob as she's about to put it in her mouth, like, is there a potential that like unfreeze it, like? Is there some splashing going on? Like right. I'm worried. Like it might be a little disgusting and gruesome. Maybe that's why they didn't show it. But like just all the mechanics of that. Like, did he pee while it was frozen so that way pee is splashing on them when they unfreeze? Does he wait till it unfreezes to then start peeing? Does he decide to go for the food that's in their hands first, or the stuff on the table first? Either way, I would love to know.
I have no idea. Which is all. It's also very interesting because none of the food looks appetizing at all. Like she picks up the corn and it's got like weird green on the corn and is like, oh yeah, nice. I'm going to eat. I don't know why. Yeah. I don't know why no one had any pause before eating this except for the boy.
What I also is that in this scene, all the food is covered in that green shit, but later on we see even with like the apples at the end, like there's no green. So it's like some food has green, some doesn't, but it all has the same effect. I don't.
It makes me wonder if they decided on the green aesthetic later, and they had already shot some of the other scenes, or maybe they decided not. They did reshoots or just didn't have the budget for that anymore after that.
More green shit,
yeah, it does feel like they abandoned something or thought up something too late.
Maybe.
But another wild thing about the food is that every time they get thwarted at eating, they just decide, I guess that's it for the day. Right. No more trying to eat today, I suppose.
Yeah, not like there's a whole town with probably a restaurant, maybe a diner. But even though we as the audience know that any food they consume in that town will likely be bad for them. Or maybe, maybe they would think to bring a bag of chips on the road. Maybe. I don't know. I like to think if I'm going on a longer road trip, I'd have something to snack on, or at least something in my back pocket to like, just as a last resort. I don't know. But I do think that is funny here. That's a good point.
Yeah. So the aftermath of this scene I'm going to talk about later, so we can move on because it's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, tell us why else this movie is great. What else makes
the Goblins? Let's talk about the Goblins for a second, which are not trolls. Which
not
are
trolls.
Not trolls. They are goblins.
You can make an argument for leprechauns, but they're not trolls.
They are not. Don't even think about trolls. No, they number one, they live in Nilbog, which is goblin backwards, which is just an insane thing to name the city if you're trying to pretend like you're not goblins. They're all, I assume, little people and probably children in like potato sacks and just the worst masks, like just
very
the
fake Halloween rubbery.
At times, whenever I would see it, I would think that, I don't know. Sometimes when I would see the masks, I would think that person is turned away and we're seeing the wrong side of. No, wait, that is the right side of the mask. Like I would not think I was looking at a face yet. Okay, so they look. Those masks are just terrible. I think on a couple of them you can see where the slits are, so the actor can see through the thing because they aren't painted either. they're just the rubber as they come without painting for the eyes or anything like that on a lot of them. The wild thing is that these goblins can transform into just humans, which makes me think, like, why ever? I assume there's a rule as to why they have to turn back into the goblin form. Maybe they have a certain amount of power they can do with the turning into humans, or they have a threshold for how much they can do, or maybe they have to before they can feed. But it's like, why even blow your cover if your whole thing is let's be here to lure humans? Why ever look like a goblin?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Another thing, just along the lines of the makeup and the masks and all that stuff, the makeup in general, even not the goblin stuff, is ridiculous. Like the green food coloring that just like runs down their face as like green blood. Is it blood? I don't really know.
Chlorophyll. It was chlorophyll. They did mention that.
Chlorophyll.
That
okay,
was chlorophyll.
Gotcha. But I don't know. Fake freckles in the beginning, very funny. The girl with the freckles, just very obviously not real freckles, and way too many, or not way too many of them, but like way too many for a condensed area where it just doesn't look normal.
There's that scene where the guy's turning into where they're turning the guy into a plant. They put him in the pot, and he's just like standing there. Apparently, during the filming of that, they nailed his shoes, his personal shoes, not prop shoes, his personal shoes, to a board, covered him head to toe in that makeup, and basically he had to stand there for 12 hours, and they wouldn't like let him sit down and stuff.
Oh, that's not good. That's like that's problematic. Yeah,
that is very bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's messed up. And but yeah, the goblins are insane. Look insane. You wanted to talk about the woman?
Yeah, no, just those sequences, because honestly, it's funny because this movie, it's weird because it's about the family, but then there's also this side plot of all the guys in the RV, and you know they're because I guess instead of going with the family, he thought it'd be fun to go with his friends and bump into the family so he could have both his friends and the family at once. I don't know.
Right.
And then she thinks that makes him gay, obviously, because if you want to spend time with your friends, you're obviously gay, according to this universe. But then we just see these random characters that we have not been introduced to whatsoever besides a line or two, like have their own little subplots. They get lured into the woods one by one. One guy meets this girl, gets turned into a tree or whatever. Another guy meets the witch lady who's in disguise as a pretty lady, and you know, he finds himself in a tub of popcorn. I just think these little side quests, side adventures are just so funny. And the witch, I mean, she's just doing so much to where I'm like, do I think she's the one who understands this movie the most, or is she the one who's just the most disconnected? I don't know. At times it's both.
I am Credence Leonor Gilgood of ancient druid origins.
And that's what's crazy about her. And I those scenes were just quite crazy, because also if you get rid of those scenes, the movie kind of works alone. But I just think all those extra little added side plots just make it even more charming as a horrible, amazing film.
I feel like she's the only one, not the only one. I don't want to say she's the only one that understood. I think most of them understood this movie isn't good. I think she's the only one who was able to take advantage of it, just based on the type of character she played.
Yeah, good point.
But yeah, she definitely got to embrace that. She was a lot of fun, but also I feel like she was always in human form. Was she a goblin? I don't even know that they really talked about what her. I feel like she was a goblin, but she was like always in human form, right?
She's the goblin's queen, also known as the druid witch.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if that means she's a goblin or she just kind of like oversees the goblins.
That's right. They did mention that she was.
But she like makes the potions apparently.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I
guess that may be it. She just may be a human. But yeah, the extra people, they're there. I understand why they're there, because they're there to be red shirts. They're there because we need people to
like victims. Yeah,
we need victims who aren't the family, because they want to do that fake out where you think everything's okay at the end, and then the mom gets eaten.
Then my question though is like, why not just make it so that she brings a few friends along for the ride? Because then it's like
exactly. Well, that was
the two
my
plots
point.
have nothing to do with one another,
right?
Except for the fact that her boyfriend is with the guys. Like,
well, that was going to be that was going to be my point. Is that I get why they're there. However, they did not. They wrote it and then decided to add these people because they needed some victims, or they're just bad storytellers, which is probably what it is. But basically, they did not write in a convincing way or a way that makes any sense why those people were there. Yes, if it had been her boyfriend shows up with a bunch of his friends, and then that makes the dad mad, and that makes the dad and daughters that strains their relationship, and it strains the boyfriend and girlfriend's relationship. Like, that would have added to the story and made sense. Like,
it's almost like we're thinking of a better movie in our heads, and we need to stop and just because honestly, I mean, any criticisms we have are going to fix this movie, and obviously the director didn't want to hear any of it because he didn't want to change the dialogue, and he probably wouldn't take our advice if we tried. But yes, you bring up great points.
But let's talk about the score to this movie.
Yes.
I actually think that the score, which at times is kind of wild, is actually the only competently produced thing in this whole movie.
That's a good point. That's fair. I'll give you that. Yeah.
Under actors who elevated material, I put no actors, but Carlo Maria Cordio's score is probably the only competently produced thing in the whole movie.
There you go. There you go. And probably because they didn't have to do any sort of like direct contact with the American actors. There was no language barrier. It was just, this is the movie, and I'm gonna make the score, and I'm gonna make it try to fit the film. Does it necessarily fit the film always? Probably not. But like on its own, as an actual composed score, I think the music itself is catchy. I think it's a little fun. I think it's fun when it just kind of comes in and you're like, wait, what? What is this music? What is this score?
Right.
I do enjoy that. I do.
Right. For the most part, the composer at least matches the tone of the scene. Not always, but at least most of the time they do. And it feels like there are times where the composer understands how silly this movie is also. Right. Which is why I think that it's so competently, or that it's the most competently produced thing in this movie. When maybe it's not perfect at least, but it's definitely. The hard thing about talking about this movie, as I mentioned before, is that it's so bad. It's so much of it is bad and entertaining that it's hard to talk about specific things with it because so much of it is just bad. Right. I think we've hit on a lot of it, but if we don't want to be here for 3 hours, I think we should probably move on to our.
Well, here's an idea, Matt. Before we get into our superlatives and our legacy, why not sometime in the future do a commentary track of Troll 2.
Yes. I
think that'd be a lot of fun because I did one on Marvelous Movie Mondays. It went well. I think the people would love a commentary track. So somewhere down the line, we'll be able to break down all these moments beat for beat. But I think this is a good starting point. We've talked about some of the best highlights, but like we could really get into the nooks and crannies and all the lines of dialogue at some point in the future, maybe as part of like a larger event, perhaps that I've been talking about with you guys, you hosts behind the scenes.
Oh, yes.
Maybe part of that. But yeah, like there's just so many great things to talk about with this. And it's something I implore everyone to watch because there's nothing like it, really. Yeah. Like you hear the concept and you're like, oh, it's just like a silly B horror movie. Like, no, it's there's nothing else like this.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so yes, exactly, and so that's great. I love that. Let's do a commentary on it. That way we can really deep dive into it in a way we can't really do just while discussing it. So I love that. So let's start with the worst line of dialogue, and this is where I was talking about before that I was saving it, which is the after he pisses on
I think we have the same one. Go for it, Matt.
And he's carrying him through the house on his shoulder, it's having him look at all the names on the things. He says, "You know what that is? That's hospitality." And then he says the line, which is,
"And you can't piss on hospitality. I won't allow it."
That is my worst line of dialogue as well, Matt. We both saved it. That's great.
And then he's like, "What are you gonna?" He starts to fiddle with his belt, and then the son is like, "What are you gonna do to me, Daddy?" And he said, "Tighten my belt one loop, so I don't feel hunger pains."
What are you going to do to me, Daddy?
"Tighten my belt by one loop so I don't feel hunger pains. And your sister and mother will have to do likewise."
So I guess the tighter your pants are to your stomach, the less and less you'll notice that you're not hungry. I don't understand the mechanics of that. I get taking your belt off if you are full, like Thanksgiving, and you want to let your stomach expand. But the other way around doesn't make any logical, physical sense. But I don't know. That was my worst line of dialogue too. That whole exchange. So I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you for that.
Worst actor. You had alluded to it earlier.
It's Connie McFarlane for me. I think it's because she has the most outrageous dialogue. Like all the stuff I rattled off earlier was like my runners up for the worst dialogue. Like it's just all her deliveries are. There's no way you can deliver that in a convincing manner.
Tomorrow morning will be your final judgment. Either me or your boys. Take it or leave it.
So I don't think it's necessarily her fault, but she's just so off the rails in this. And like there are bad actors throughout. Like don't get me wrong. But like hers is the most, I think, recognizable because the writing is worse than the other characters as well, so it's elevated. But I also got to give a honorable mention to the mother, Margot Prey, because her deliveries are just as bad. It's just the lines she's delivering aren't as significantly noticeable. But like you'd think she was talking to a can of paint, like the way she delivers every line, like this. And now she talks to this line, and she talks to the can of paint, and she's just talking. Oh, and then she talks like it's not like she's having a conversation with anything or anyone. It's quite bizarre.
Yeah, you remind me of another sequence that I love, which is the part where the dad and daughter are fighting, and then the mom is like, sing that song I like so much.
Yes.
And then he's like, I don't want to sing it. And she's like, sing that song, please. And he starts singing "Row, Row, Row Your Boat" as though, like she says it as though
it's
like
hidden gem. Like oh my god, I haven't heard the song before. I mean that song you sing all the time. It's beautiful, and it's "Row, Row Your Boat."
And then then they sing it as a round. But like she starts in a weird place, and then Dad just starts singing along with it, not in the round. Like
she's like a measure behind. He's like 2 beats behind, and the sister's not even like it's totally not joined. Like because sometimes and for people who aren't understanding what we're talking about music terms, a round is where like you start a song and then someone comes in a little later and someone comes on a little later, and they all kind of like loop together very nicely. But like if you don't start at the right point, it's not gonna sound good. It's just not. And that is the problem with this song at this moment. That was my runner-up for train wreck moments too. So I'm glad you brought it up because it is so bad. It's so bad. Yes. Anyway, Matt, who's your worst actor?
My worst actor is George Hardy, who plays the dad. And
don't you mean Aaron Eckhart? I think he looks just like Aaron Eckhart.
He does. While the daughter, I agree. Like the thing is that everyone else in the movie kind of felt like she out of everybody, she got the dialogue that was written by someone furthest away from her position, like furthest away from her experience. So it always sounds worse from her because they're trying to sound like something she's not. Is really what it is. George, he sounds like it. I mean, the dialogue is just a bizarre version of something a dad would say in it, but everything is so here. Like everything he says is just here. It's so high, and it's so like at the top of his threshold, and he has some great lines of dialogue. I'm actually just reminded of a thing that's not really him. But a little bit, which is the scene where I forgot to mention a Grandpa Seth power, which was that he lit that one goblin on fire.
Yes, and apparently, I guess when you're on fire, your human form burns out and your goblin form is left underneath. I don't really know, because it was a human man and then goblin corpse. I don't know, but that is hilarious.
So he burns. The boy just stands there and watches it, standing next to a fire extinguisher. The dad, George, I don't remember what the dad's name. I think it's just dad. Dad comes out. Michael, there you go. Yeah, comes out and immediately reaches down around a corner and grabs a fire extinguisher he somehow knows is there without looking. Like, he just grabs a fire extinguisher and puts out the person. That scene is so magical because, number one, it's the hidden Grandpa Seth power which maybe that's why he had to go at 6, because he used up all of his powers, freezing time and setting people on fire. That he had just run out of ghost energy at the end there. But that scene is just so magical. But anyway, George, seriously, watch Best Worst Movie, the documentary. It's so good. It follows him most of the time, George Hardy, because like he's a dentist in real life.
Yeah.
And
wow. Okay.
Yeah. He's a dentist. He got this job. Then he went back to being a dentist.
And then he was in the Dark Knight and played Two-Face. Yeah.
He's really embraced the cult nature of this movie. Like started going to cons and stuff like that, but there's also like a sad tragedy around it where he's just like, yeah, I would be in Troll 2 Part 2, in a second. Like I want to be an actor. I would love to go out and be an actor. Like dentistry is not what I love. I'm a dentist because I'm a bad actor. Like it's because I didn't make it as an actor. Like that's kind of his thing, and it's got this really sad note to his thing. And then there's a point in the documentary where he's at the cons and he's been going to the cons and doing those stuff, where he just kind of, it's like he has a clarity moment where he's just like, what am I doing? And he goes over and he's like, everybody's got gingivitis. Everybody sucks here. I don't know. I don't like it here. I just want to leave. And then he leaves. Like there's this really depressing thing. Anyway.
Yeah, it's sad for actors who start this way, especially for a movie that was made in what year is this? 1990? 90? Yeah, 1990. Yeah. Like cult movies usually takes time to develop some sort of cult following, and you'll get into the legacy in just a bit. But like, sometimes it takes a little while to get into a cult status, to where by the time it becomes cult status, you've already tried and failed at the thing you love to do. Whereas nowadays, it's like if a film is not great and you're criticized for giving a bad performance, there are enough lovers and passionate people out there that could help give you that second shot. We see that with Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart in Twilight. Like their performances were criticized, but they still had people believe in them and give them the shots. And now Robert Pattinson is the Batman and Kristen Stewart is an Oscar nominee. And they are great actors and actresses. They are not defined by their Twilight work. If Twilight had come out in 1990, maybe we never hear about them again. And maybe they're in the same positions as these people, because these people didn't have the benefit of social media and passionate, fans and other directors to like kind of give them that shot. It is sad. It is unfortunate with a lot of these movies we'll talk about of these older eras. The Room as well, like just seeing those actors and what they did not amount to. It's very similar in that sense.
Right. George Hardy, they're all bad. It's hard to pick one, but that's one I picked just because his delivery is just next level. Okay. So that brings us to actors who elevated material. I already said mine, which was no actors, just the composer. Did you have one?
I don't think this person elevates the material, but I think they're doing the best for what they're given and their age. And I did go with Michael Stevenson as Joshua, because I think at that age, child actors, if you don't have a good director, you're doomed. Because at that age, you just haven't gone through enough time and training to like develop those skills. It's very rare you get a Henry Thomas in E.T. who just is a natural off the bat, doesn't need direction. But even then, Steven Spielberg elevated his direction so much. So I don't blame Michael Stevenson for not being the best. His lines are horrible, but I do think he, as a child actor, at least understands the emotion behind what he's feeling in the moments. And like when he has to be when he has the moments of urgency, he is urgent, and some moments he should have urgency, he doesn't, but that's not on him. That's more on the directing. But I think there are bits and pieces of promise in his performance, especially at his age. I think he's at least trying really hard, and it shows, and it's kind of intriguing to see, like, at least the dialogue. He doesn't realize how silly it is, but he's at least giving it his all 100%. And that's what makes the dialogue as memorable as it is because he is delivering it like he's Marlon Brando. And I think that is why I think I appreciate him the most. I don't think he elevates the material, but I think of all the actors, he's trying the hardest and shows a little glimpse of like, this kid has something. Maybe it's not something good, but it's something.
It's something.
And I think that's why I would choose him or one of the three friends, just because they have the least amount to do and the least amount to fuck up. But I do think Michael Stevenson, would probably be my pick.
Yeah, I dig that. That's a very good point. All right, let's go with your train wreck moment of the movie.
I mean, it's got to be the peeing, right? Like, I think I alluded to it earlier. Like, that moment to me is what makes this movie so crazy. I mean, there's so many moments that makes it crazy, but that's what really, like, is the first moment in the movie where I'm like, oh my God, like, this movie. And I think it's just because it's just the idea of, because it makes sense, but it's also just the way it's conveyed, the way you have the time frozen 30 seconds that feels like 2 minutes and probably is 2 minutes, and him, slowly walking around the room and him getting up and almost unzipping, and you're not sure if they're going to show it or not, and then it cuts to just the aftermath of it, and what happened in that aftermath. I actually think that's a kind of a fun choice, despite me saying earlier that I wish we saw like how crazy and disgusting it was. Like, it is interesting to see like that cut to the next frame and exactly what went down. Like, that is actually maybe a good choice. I don't know, like, just a creative choice, but it's just that whole moment, like when my friends for the first time introduced me to it. I believe, if you're listening, I believe it was you, Eli and Tyler. I remember them being like, there is a scene where this kid pisses all over the dinner table, and I'm like, I need to watch this. And I think that's just like one of those moments that like I will always remember. Even if I forget about this movie, I don't think I'll ever forget about this movie, but if I'm older and like just all the movies that come and go, I'll be able to remember the scene and it'll bring me back. So, yeah.
Right. For me, that's a great scene. And yeah, you're right about everything there. For me, it's also a classic scene, and it's probably the most memed scene, which is the oh my God, as it zooms in.
Oh my God!
I think about that delivery and that thing probably once a week. I absolutely that is the thing that made me watch this movie originally, is that I had seen a clip of that and I was like, I need to see whatever that movie is, and then I watched it and I absolutely
that's amazing.
So that's my train wreck moment of that.
That's a great pick. That's a great pick.
Let's talk about Legacy real quick, which most of it we've actually already talked about for the most part. It was not well received. It was originally supposed to get a theatrical release, and it didn't. It came out straight to HBO, I think, like HBO and video VHS. Like was
crazy. Like in the same decade where HBO gave us Sopranos, they gave us Troll 2.
Yeah,
wild.
It was. It has gained a cult status of being one of the worst movies of all time. It is shown at midnight screenings, sometimes with Rocky Horror, like the double feature. But cool. in the same way that it gets the midnight or it gets the the midnight screening treatment. They do. There was in 2007 there was a huge event called Nilbog Invasion, which was just like a huge, like it was like basically a con for this show where they got a bunch of people together. But there are places that have like annual screenings of this with like a bunch of like just like each year more people come and bring people who have never seen it. Like they talk about this in the documentary. It's become a phenomenon. And then the documentary Best Worst Movie came out in 2009, and it was made by Michael Stevenson, who has also embraced this thing.
Nice.
It was called Troll 2 because distribution wanted it to change. Distributors wanted to capitalize on the success of the first Troll movie.
I was going to ask, how successful was the first Troll movie? And that was going to be my question, was have you seen the first Troll movie? Like,
I've never seen the first Troll movie. I hear it's not. I haven't seen it because it's not supposed to be like good bad, but it's also not supposed to be good. I think. I don't know. But I haven't seen it. I probably should just so I can answer that question, because I have been asked that many times before. I should watch it just so I can answer the question. There are 2 other films that they also released as though they were sequels to this movie, though, or to Troll. One was Crawlers, which is known as Troll 3 or Contamination. Contamination 7. Is that what I'm reading here? I don't know. And then Quest for the Mighty Sword, which features a hobgoblin, and it uses the same goblin suit from Troll 2, is also often called Troll 3.
And one little thing I did find on Troll, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, an early role for her in Troll.
Nice.
And Sonny Bono was also in it. So
wow.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Just interesting 2 cast members in that movie. That's all I have on it. And the main character's name is Harry Potter. There you go. The more you know.
Interesting. And this was well before Harry Potter, so yeah, wow.
Yeah. Maybe J.K. Rowling ripped this off. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. There are trolls in Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, which brings us to the matter of the score.
Score, not the musical score, the score we give it, which normally is 5 is the highest in terms of like peak bad movies. Not like 5 out of 5, not like your Martin Scorsese masterpieces. Like, this is on the bad movie scale. So if you get a 1, it means it's probably a really good movie, and not a bad movie. Like The Godfather would get like a half a star on the bad movie scale. So that is how we rate these movies on here. So Matt, why don't you take it away first? What is your rating?
My rating is, and this is going to be unsurprising based on the preamble from this very episode, which is that it's my absolute favorite bad movie. I give it 5 creepy grandpas appearing only to me out of 5.
Well, it should be no surprise to me either, because I've been gushing over it. I'm giving it 5 big spankings for 5 little shits. That is our rating. We're giving it a perfect 10 here on Framewreck. How exciting! Which leads us now to our Mount Trashmore, which is a Mount Rushmore of bad movies. Right now, we got two founding fathers up there, Birdemic and The Room. We also got it joined by the Star Wars Holiday Special and Batman and Robin. I think it might be time to kick one of those off, Matt. The question is, which one of the 2 are we kicking off? Because we're keeping, I think, The Room and Birdemic up there. I think.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. I think we got to let one of the others go.
I think we kick. I think we kick the Holiday Special. I think it's time. Do you think it's the other way?
When I think of so bad it's good, though, I think of Holiday Special before I think of Batman and Robin, because Batman and Robin I genuinely enjoy. I don't know though.
I would say the camp entertainment value in Batman and Robin outweighs the camp entertainment value in Christmas Special, which is why I say that.
Yeah, and the Holiday Special is not as accessible either, so maybe there's like that also. Like, if we want to make the definitive Mount Rushmore, maybe the Holiday Special, having a special up there, just doesn't feel right in the spirit. So I'm with you. All right, so sorry, Lumpy, you're off the Mount Trashmore. We are back up there with Batman and Robin, The Room, and Birdemic. We have joining them Troll 2 up there as a member of that 4. It can always change, though. Troll 2 is not there forever, even though it might be. I don't know.
I can't imagine it not being there forever, but maybe.
Because my favorite is up there, yours is up there, The Room and Troll 2. I'd say like that's like our Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, and Birdemic's like the like third in command, which means Batman and Robin, you're teetering off the edge, but you're still up there for now.
Yeah.
Batman and Robin, you will enjoy your glory in the North Dakotan sunlight, or is it South Dakota? I don't know where Mount Rushmore is. You'll enjoy your time out there in the sun for a little while longer, but maybe next month that'll change because we have some good stuff planned.
Yes.
Matt?
Well, we did this one because we had a nice string of movies that just weren't that bad, or weren't good enough to warrant us talking about, or to
South Dakota. Damn it, it's South Dakota.
I was going to say I think it's South Dakota, but then I went, but if I'm wrong,
No, but okay, I guess you're right. Okay.
But anyway, so we had a string of movies that were either pretty good or just bad and not very entertaining. So we decided, hey, we're going to go with a classic here. We're going with Troll 2. We're going to stay on that train for at least one more episode, and we're going to go with the granddaddy of bad movies, and that is Ed Wood's Plan 9 from Outer Space.
That is right. So if you've seen the movie Ed Wood about the filmmaker Ed Wood, you've probably seen a little bits and pieces of this, but this is the actual movie by the director Ed Wood, Plan 9 from Outer Space. From Outer Space. And we do recommend, if you haven't seen it, also watch Ed Wood, which is the Tim Burton film, 1994. Martin Landau won Best Supporting Actor for it. So check that out as well, because that gives a lot of great context for this movie as well. I've seen Ed Wood, but I've never seen Plan 9 from Outer Space, so that'll be a lot of fun. I'm a bad movie. I shouldn't say virgin, but I'm an amateur. I have not seen everything, so that it's really nice when a Troll 2 comes up where I can talk about it, because I've seen it so many times. But sometimes it's nice to get your never before seen treats, because then it's like opening a new Christmas present of spoiled rotten eggs and being like, oh, this is so exciting. So that'll be me next month, seeing Plan 9 from Outer Space for the first time. Matt, any last words about Plan 9 from Outer Space, about Troll 2, just about yourself and where they can find you? Any last words? I'm
excited for us to be able to do a commentary and give this movie a proper talking to, because there's so much we didn't go over, and it was just so hard to come up with the right things to talk about. I'm so glad that we hit on some
great points, though.
Yeah, we did. I'm just glad we're going to be able to do a commentary. That makes me so happy. You can reach me.
If you guys really don't want it, let us know, but I feel like they'll want it.
Yeah, they'll want it. You can reach me at MattmanXIII, basically anywhere on the internet, Twitter, Letterboxd, TikTok. Come join me on the internet.
Yep. And you can find me in any sort of goblin territory at Ozidnar_Nalid, or in every other universe, Dylan_Randazzo at Twitter and Letterboxd, and at the Dyl Pickle Movie Network here on YouTube. If you're watching, thank you so much. And go check out our other shows. We had Matt on Draft Day most recently. We're going to have Matt on Marvelous Movie Mondays on Monday, because Matt and I are going head to head in a fun trivia battle. I can't wait to see how that goes. Matt's just everywhere on this channel. So go check his stuff out. Go check all of my stuff out, because he's there, and other great guests are there as well. So thank you all so much, and we will see you next time.
Ah!
What a story, Mark.
You have asked me time and time again if I'll play another match, but the answer is no.
Bucky Barnes.
All right, I won my match against Zach. I'm very content being 1-0 and just retiring from there. As for me, I'm just going to play cool and enjoy hosting for a little while, but if the time arises where someone wants to throw a challenge out of me, they can, but I don't know if I'll accept it.
I would say I would like to come back after I have bested some of these other morons who play this game.
Killmonger?
That is correct, and that is a perfect 10 out of 10 for Noah.
I'll say MIT.
And your winner. Going forward, Noah, you said you might want to rematch with Carrie. Is there anyone else that you've seen either in past or you want to call out to join the league to perhaps face?
You know, it always be fun to play her counterpart, Chad.
And I'd love to play against my husband.
It looks like Noah and Carrie both want a stab at Chad. Maybe a triple threat match is up for grabs maybe in the future. Maybe we'll put Noah, Carrie, and Chad in a match together. That might be something fun. I will play another match, but you have to let me pick the competitor.
I mean, this is a children's show, so I decided to get rid of that name altogether.
Yeah, I've got a name for you. Matt Fisto. Both your wife, Carrie, and your friend Noah want to face you, so would you be up to doing a triple threat match with them?
Absolutely. Yeah. Bring it on.
All right.